So what if reality isn't made of stuff at all? What if it's made of pure living mathematics? And what if your mind, your consciousness, could directly manipulate that math to change the world around you? Well, that's the wild idea we're diving into today, a completely different framework for understanding existence and maybe our true power within it.
Okay, I know, this sounds like something straight out of science fiction, right? But according to the theory we're about to break down, this isn't magic. It's a potential application of the fundamental laws of the universe. It's really the ultimate goal of understanding how our reality is actually constructed. The name for this is Pythagorean Illuminism, sometimes called ontological mathematics. And the core idea is pretty mind-bending. Existence isn't built on particles or strings. It's built on mathematical minds. These things called monads. In this view, literally everything we see and experience is just a projection from these fundamental minds. To even begin to get our heads around this, we have to start with the single most important piece of the puzzle. We need to talk about the foundational building block of this entire system, the monad. You can think of it as the mathematical soul. So what is a monad exactly? Well, imagine a single, immortal point of pure mind. It's a dimensionless singularity, which is just a fancy way of saying it has no size and it doesn't exist in our normal space and time. It lives in a purely mathematical reality called a frequency domain. And here's the kicker. Each monad is like a complete library. It contains the potential for every single wave and therefore every single thought that could possibly exist.
Whoa, okay. Now that's a lot of math on the screen. But don't worry, you're not going to be tested on this. We're not here to solve it. What's important is understanding what the ingredients mean. This equation is basically a Fourier series, which is a powerful way to build any complex reality you can imagine just by combining simple, pure waves. This is the engine of thought, and its parts tell us exactly how it works. And you know, when you break it down, the ingredients are surprisingly simple. You've got omega, which is the frequency. Think of that as every possible thought or idea you could have. Then there's amplitude, which is just the strength of that thought, how much you're focusing on it. And finally, phi, the phase. That's all about the timing and how your thoughts line up with each other. Your entire conscious experience right now is just you constantly and dynamically changing these three variables. All right, so that's one monad, one single mathematical soul. But obviously, you're not the only one here. So how do we get from a single mind to the shared reality we all experience together? Well, that's where the universal hologram comes into play. You see, all monads exist together in a place called the plenum. The best way to picture it is as this infinite, super densely packed grid of souls, a soul world, if you will. And since every single monad already contains all possible waves, this entire collection acts like one gigantic, living, breathing, holographic plate. Now, just like ripples on a pond, the mental waves coming from every single monad interact with each other. They crash and combine and cancel out. The grand total of all this cosmic mental activity creates one huge collective wave. And we call that the universe wave function. You can really think of it as the master blueprint for our entire shared reality. So we have this gigantic mathematical blueprint existing in the frequency domain. But how does that, become the chair you're sitting on or the screen you're looking at right now? There's a very specific mechanical step that makes it all happen. This slide lays out the process perfectly. First, in that frequency domain, you've got the collective universe wave function. That's the blueprint. Then, step 2, a mathematical operation called an inverse Fourier transform acts like a cosmic projector. And for step 3, that projector takes all the wave information and translates it into the 3D space-time hologram that we call the physical world. The huge takeaway here is that matter isn't fundamental. It's the result of a mathematical projection. And this brings us right back around to where we started. If our reality is just a big collective projection, can an individual monad, an individual mind like yours, consciously add something new to that projection? According to this theory, the answer is a definitive, absolute yes. See, most of a monad's activity is just background noise, diffuse, unfocused waves, unconscious thoughts that are just automatically maintaining reality. But conscious will? That's totally different. That's the act of deliberately selecting very specific waves, cranking up their power, and aligning them perfectly to inject a brand new, coherent object into that shared hologram. So let's get practical with this. If you actually wanted to use your will to create that orb of light we've been talking about, what would you be doing on a mathematical level? What's the recipe?
Well, here it is. This is the exact mathematical recipe. First, the frequencies. You'd have to select waves purely from the visible light spectrum. Simple enough. Next, you'd boost their amplitudes way, way up. That's what makes the orb intensely bright. But the real secret sauce, the magic ingredient, is the phases. You have to lock them all in perfect sync, so all the waves build on each other constructively. It's the exact same principle that makes a laser work. That perfect alignment is what creates a stable, solid-looking sphere of light, instead of just a puff of chaotic energy. Now, this sounds incredibly advanced, and let's be honest, it is. But this framework also lays out a path for how a monad actually learns to do this. It's not about memorizing equations, it's a process of self-optimization, maybe over many, many lifetimes. It all begins with that default, unconscious state where most of our mental energy is just diffused. Then comes a stage called gnosis. This is where these mathematical principles stop being abstract ideas and become intuitively real to you. That gnosis leads to deliberate practice, where you start making small, willed changes and watching the feedback in the hologram. And with enough refinement, that conscious control just becomes second nature. It becomes effortless.
And this brings us to the most important, most direct takeaway from all of this. You're not just somebody observing this process from the outside. You are the monad. Your focused consciousness, your will, your deepest intention, that is the force that tweaks the amplitudes and aligns the phases of your very own mathematical soul. So the ultimate provocative thought to leave you with is this. We aren't just living in the universe, we are all actively generating it together, moment by moment. And if this mathematical model is correct, then the potential for conscious creation isn't just a fantasy. It might just be our destiny. So the only question left is, what would you choose to project onto the canvas?